All right, June 20th here, so we're going to do a little update. First off, thanks everyone. We hit 100,000 subscribers. That was a big moment for us. And all our shorts are up to date. So they were catching up a little bit, but now all our shorts are up to date, so they may come out a little bit less frequently. But the good news is that Perrin is coming on full time, our guy behind the camera right now, and he's going to be doing a lot more updates, and hopefully we can get a lot more long format videos going now that the shorts have caught up. And well, actually he was nice enough to come with us full time finally here. Biggest update now, we got our bumper done, so that's exciting. That is now reinforced directly into the frame rail, so it's 1/2 inch thick, solid steel. Our toe pins have been reinforced, so it's actually hugging the frame rail. It runs with a piece of channel down the side. There's an insert on the inside part of the frame rail, which means if you hit something, you send the full momentum of your frame rails directly into what you're hitting. You're not going to be taking out front hangers or anything like that, which is really, really what you want when you're a logging truck. If you weigh 160,000 pounds, you want to be able to drive that full weight into whatever you're going to hit. A log, a boulder, a tree in the side of the road, whatever it is, a moose. The big problem is like, oh, people said, what about crumple zones? I've gotten that off one of the short videos. I do want to take a time and say that trucks do not have crumple zones. These kind of are standard semi-truck front bumpers. The reason is you don't want a crumple zone when you hit something because you become an uncontrollable mass. Say, God forbid, you hit something small that weighs, 5,000 pounds. A car. The biggest problem is that there's no crumple zones in this, because you take out your steer axle. Now, you're doing 110 kilometers an hour. You smack into a car that weighs 5,000 pounds. It does not slow you down when you weigh 140,000 pounds. All that's doing is knocking 10, 20 kilometers an hour off your speed. Now, if you had a crumple zone, and like a car, your axle and your motor and everything kind of relocated and shifted, what happens is that you now have uncontrollable mass hurtling down the road. As your steer axle is shifted, twisted, you can't control the direction what you're going. And at the end of the day, for truck driver safety, it's way more important to be able to just control where you're going after a large impact. Last thing you want is to hit a moose. Imagine a moose pops out, hits something, knocks out your steer axle. Now you can't steer, and you're hurtling at 140,000 pounds into oncoming traffic. At the end of the day, trucks, it doesn't matter. It's not just our truck that does not have crumple zones. Any semi-truck, all the ones we have parked out in the thing, do not have crumples. They have full frame rails that go into bumpers so that they can control their momentum. It's actually similar to why trucks don't have airbags. Semi-trucks don't have airbags for the same reason they don't have crumple zones. They tried to put airbags in trucks for a little while, and turns out it's a terrible idea when you weigh this much and you have a stop that, you hit something, knocks 10, 20 kilometers an hour off your speed, and then an airbag goes off. Now the driver can't steer because he's disoriented. Instead, you hit something, and then you still have to steer and brake. If you disorient the driver so he can't hit the brakes or the steering wheel, you now have a ton of mass completely uncontrolled flying down the road. As much as it kind of sucks to say, that's the realities of trucking. When it's a lot of mass, you need a lot of mass. Plus, this is an off-highway truck, so. Okay, some people have noticed the height of our bumper. Now, our bumper is actually legal height. Barely legal height. This is like the minimum you're allowed to be. But we went with a bed truck, off-highway truck. This is where off-highway trucks, winch tractors, bed trucks run their bumper, just because they want that bumper a little bit higher, and then they run a lower skid plate part of the bumper. Actually, I can show you the truck outside, and we kind of similar. Let's just film that truck real quick. Have a look at our truck. Now, if you compare it to this one, this is just the Kenworth C500. So this is Kenworth and PACCAR, a large OEM, and you'll notice that their off-highway bumper is very, very similar. You have large skid plating, reinforced, and that bumper height is actually even taller than ours. But, same reason, these are heavy spec'd off-highway trucks. It's not a standard highway truck bumper. And they figure the odds of you running into something in the bush that's a lot bigger, or there's a driver safety issue of controlling in the bush with animals, whatnot, is more because these things tend to, you just don't run into a lot of cars out in the middle of nowhere in Canada. So you have reinforced. So in a last one of our shorts, there was a video of us hitting a car with this thing. Here's all the damage. That's it. That's the only damage on these things from plowing into an SUV. Actually, I think we can.
Multiple cars.
Multiple. We hit like 4 or 5 cars with this thing, and that's the only damage.
It's paint, cosmetic.
It literally is just cosmetic, some cosmetic paint. This is actually not even from the cars. Like, these little things are... Actually, this bumper is designed to be used as a push truck. So if another truck is stuck in the mud or needs a hand getting pushed up a hill, this bumper is meant to push something that weighs like 180,000, 200,000 pounds. This bumper is literally designed to push 200,000 pounds. It's designed so you can winch it right up onto the low bed rails of another truck. So if this thing's stuck in the mud, another winch tractor comes and it'll lift this entire bumper up onto the low bed rails, putting a steer axle weight onto the pull tractor, giving you more weight on the drives, giving weight onto his drives, and your steer axle isn't even on the ground. So this bumper will support the entire front weight of this truck. That's how off-highway trucks do it, right from the OEM. So if you're complaining, oh, Edison's making their truck too dangerous, no, that's how PACCAR does it. Even old Blue here, this bumper is part of the frame rails. The frame rails go into this bumper, and it's reinforced solid steel. That's how trucks have it. Ray here can introduce us to the hood structure. He's been working on making this and making sure all of that works. He can walk you through it.
Yeah, so with the hood structure we got going on, we have 2 angle irons to protect your engine. You know, a $90,000 engine, you don't want anything dropping on it going kaputs. We have the overall frame going on here. We're going to have the side pieces, the removable side pieces are going to get inside the frame here, all nicely soundproofed off. And I'm not really sure what the hell else to say.
Got radiator protection on the front.
Rad protection, that'll get a front rad, main rad structure, some extra reinforcement. It's going to have butterfly hoods, so the 2 hoods that open up like that, and inserts that slide in and out, just like that C500 outside, or Western Star 6900 XD until they stop making them.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is... Got a little bit more work to do, got to put the panels in, but hopefully by the end of this week we can have this guy all done, and which means next week we can do the axles. In this video we got the dash and the wiring, but Zach is an absolute genius when it comes to this stuff, so I'm going to let him explain what him and Eric did on this, because it's actually really cool for a dash perspective.
Yeah, so we've tried to make these inputs so you have to do the least amount of thinking when you're working on them and while you're driving. So our first one here is going to be our marker lights. So we have a couple of those on at the front just to show that our logic works. And then our second switch is going to be our cab lights. So it's just a single light to show that it works. And then our next one is going to be our headlights. So those are for the front. And then to switch between high and low beams, we have a step-on switch here at the very bottom.
So it works.
And then it's not fully installed.
I didn't put the nuts on.
But if we should step on it, we should switch between high beams, low beams. High beams, low beams.
I really, really like this style because with an electric truck, there's no clutch or anything. So your left foot has nothing to do. So I figured your left foot might as well take the high beams. Then you don't have to reach around and hit a switch as you're driving and take the hands off the wheel. You just reach down, hit the thing, hit the... Sorry, carry on. I really like that though.
Yeah.
Also, big chonky toggle switches. Like, this was what I insisted on. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So we've done some real nice cable management. You can thank Dan for all that, making our lives and your lives a little bit easier. So we kind of follow us all the way back, and then here we get to our voltage control. As we come down here, we have all of our inputs. So all of these are relays. So this was something that was actually designed by me, but this will allow us to control our high and our low speed for our wipers, and when you turn them off, it will automatically go to a park position. So we've set it up for our left side, our center, and our right side of the cab. So then all of our signals come in and then come out. This will also act as our fuse box and our ignition. So right now I don't think it's wired up, but this is when you come in, you'll turn it on and you'll never see that again. It's not part of the dash.
I put it here because my knee kept hitting things on the dash, like on the Kenworth style, where it's right next to you and then your knee's constantly bumping on it. So I just said, screw it, make it like a piece of heavy equipment, put it on the side. You turn the key on at the start of the day, you never have to switch it again. And I was gonna say, and what these guys managed to do is rather than putting everything behind the dash, because that dash is so tiny, because we're really trying to optimize visibility, made it like a piece of heavy equipment and all your fuses and relays. So if you ever have to work on this, it's easy to access right next to the seat. You can sit in the driver's seat, you can do all your wiring. You never have to reach in behind a dash, pull a dash apart to get it wired. It's like, yeah, if you got to replace a switch, you just got to pull out a side panel, put the switch. But if you got to do any kind of diagnostic work, everything you need to do is right here. It's analog, it's simple. Explain how you design this.
Yeah, so for the top one here is all of our 24-volt logic. And then the down here, this is mainly just going to be all of our 12-volt stuff. So for some of the lights, your USB, your cigarette, all that kind of different fun stuff. There's not too much going on here. We're still working on putting more fuses in for all of our marker lights and all of our fuses for the horn and the wipers and the cab lights and all that kind of fun stuff. But I'll demonstrate this logic here. So if I turn this switch, it will go into its fast mode. And if we go up, it was in the slow. So now it's in the fast mode. So it was in the slow mode. And then we have it set up. So as soon as you turn it off, it will find its way back to its park position automatically. And that's all using relay logic. No fancy computers or anything like that. And then, so if you need to fix it, use the manual. It tells you, you replace this relay, you plug it in like this, and you're good to go. And this, we have this controlled so you can control your left, your center, and your right all independently. So I could put the left one on slow, the right one on high, and my center one also on high, and they all run separately of each other. Oh, the rain's gone away. And they all find their way back to their park position.
The reason we did it that way is that, well, with 3 windows, each window can get different. If you get passed by an oncoming truck, you can just give your side window a little wipe. Just take a little bit of mist off it rather than having to wipe all of them. Washer sprayer's right beside it. No, the sprayer's not hooked up yet. Electric horn.
No, not hooked up yet. And then for our last little bit, we have this panel here. This isn't hooked up yet, but this will allow us to control all of your outside lights and all your fancy flasher lights and spinning whatnots.
Light bars. All your light bars, yep.
So we will be able to control all of these separately from here, and yeah, so that will all run back also into here. So if we ever get another problem, it's all in the same place. And it's it's an individual wire. We've color coded everything, and everything is all greatly labeled, so it should be really simple to fix or to diagnose a problem.
Yeah, if you have an issue with, say, a wiper motor, oh, that's the green wire. It's the right wiper motor. Or, I don't know, I'm just making these colors up. I can't remember what you did. I was working on the bumper. But also, the other thing is, you'll notice our wires, it's going to get loomed and tucked in, but our wires are going to be on the outside because we proudly show off the fact that the truck has wiring. We're not trying to hide everything behind panels because, let's face it, on a vocational truck, you need to be able to service these kind of things. It's 5-10 years down the line, if you need to work on anything or replace a wire or do whatever, you can pull all your wiring harness. And this will actually make the entire wiring harness a one-day job to replace. You get a wiring harness bundle with everything in it. You could literally replace your entire cab wiring harness in a day. You're back to work with a brand new set of relays. What, $200? And 1 day of labor and you replace your entire cab wiring harness?
Yeah, and then I've also been working on, me and Eric, we've been working on setting up a real fancy schematic design of all of the systems. So if for some reason your left wiper isn't working, you know exactly where it connects, which color of wire it should be, and where it should be connected. And it should be, test your continuity, double check yourself, and replace the wire and you're good to go. Or if anything else blows, it's all been carefully labeled in a book, the user manual.
Yeah, and we're going to try and get a printout of what everything is and put it on the back panel.
Yeah, so that'll be on here and also in the user manual.
Yeah.
You should maybe say the wires aren't going to be loose like that. You're going to put a casing on them or something?
Yeah, we'll put like a loom or something.
Maybe to say that because of the way because
He made it convey like it was going to be
like loose wires.
Yeah, no, it's not going to be loose wires. It'll be like in a nice packaged loom, nice. Yeah,
Clean.
Yeah, it'll be clean, and it'll all be together and packaged. But it's not going to be tucked away behind a bunch of paneling, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some people might like it. Some people might hate it. Mechanics will love it. If you're expecting like a Tesla or something modern and refined, this is not that. But purposely. Nice too. Why hide the fact that a truck has wiring? You know it's going to have wiring. Why not show off your wiring? Put some nice conduit. Tuck it off to the side. Good enough. Like, sure, yes. People have said, why don't you go through it and run your wires through your pipe, through everything? But then if you got to service it, you got to string all that wire out. Just put in some nice grommets that hold the whole thing. Tuck it up. Put the headliner. Like, people don't, like, why hide it? Just make it look nice and make it look as part of the cab.
Yeah, and we've also made as many of these parts as easy as it can for someone who's not technically trained to fix and understand it. The only computery part of this entire system is this, because this uses some fancy connections and all that to control all of our different relays for that. That is pretty, what would you call it? Proprietary, but it's easy to get a hold of.
Yeah, there's a lot of aftermarket people that just make these things.
Yeah, so that's
gangs with. And if people want it in the future, we could always change it to actual toggle switches like that, but time is not on our side on this build. All right, our next steps are the airlines. Get this stuff started tucking away, get a junction box at the back of the cab, and then we'll start installing all the airlines. We'll put some diff lock switches in here, plumb in the air brakes. We're going to put our air gauges on the top of the dash there. That's going to be Dan and Eric's job here the rest of this week. And me, Ray, and my dad are going to be working on the hood structure and finishing up this front bumper. So now that we've got the cab off, we'll have to get this thing done. It may look like we're going completely backwards, but I assure you we're not. Like one of our last updates, we had the cab on, we had the hood structure on, and we've taken it all off now because the cab's been painted, it's getting prepped. Our motors just arrived in Canada, so our generator for the back end just arrived in Canada. We should get it in about a week and a half. Figure we'll leave the cab off to facilitate the mounting of the generator. Some big words. The frame rail, we took all our cab mounts off, painted them all up. We sandblasted, painted the frame rail. Came back here, our suspension components are in. We did go with a tandem, so our tandem suspension is now in. We've been working on putting all the bushings and the bearings, assembling that. We're just making up the hangers for the axle mounts right now. We should have them from our machine shop by the end of the week to hold the axles. Then next week we can start mounting the axles. We'll start bolting the cab hangers, or the cab mounts, everything else back on. But we built everything, got it to work in a raw steel state, took it all off, painted. Now it's just a matter of reassembling everything together. The last thing to really make is the hood shroud structure, but now that we have the bumper made, the cab made, the main structure in place, we're just putting in the final details like the hood opening, closing. Then we'll have to do up the fenders, the side boxes, but the fenders and the side boxes are really the two things that we actually haven't done. But Edison Motors mud flaps. So now we've got over 100 of these mud flaps that we ordered in. We're going to be putting them on the store. I think like 45 bucks a piece or something like that. We just got to figure out shipping on these. They're quite large. And also, I wanted to thank everyone for their support. What we did last summer, because now we're in that 10-week push, everyone's pulling a lot of overtime. What we did is we put on an option, beers for the boys. So everyone's working late, everyone's pulling tons of hours. You know, it was just one of those things where if you want to buy the guys around a beer at the end of the day, we put that as an option. Already got to thank Dylan from Connecticut, B-Man from Nanaimo for hooking us up here for a round of beers for us at the end of the day. And, you know, it just goes a long way for crew morale. Really, when you're pulling long hours, knowing that there's somebody out there supporting you, like I can bring it in there, give everyone a nice shout out. There's an option to leave a message for if you want to let all the guys working here know, and they really do appreciate it a lot. It goes a long way for crew morale, but yeah, kind of a little promotion at the end there, I guess. That's a solid bumper.